Welcome back to Africa 54. Dangerous drivers behind the wheel. It's a big issue in Africa. Let's go to Ndemiake Mwakaliele with more on the concerns. Ndemi?
Well, thank you so much, Vincent. Thousands of people around the world are taking part in walks and rallies to promote traffic safety. May is Global Youth Traffic Safety Month. It is a subject that touches the hearts of many, including the Nelson Mandela family of South Africa. VOA's Carolyn Presutti explains why.
Cars and people trying to get along on the world's busiest roads. Biking and walking and crossing in Cambodia, India, Tanzania, competing with driving and sometimes losing. 1.2 million die in traffic crashes worldwide every year. South Africa has one of the world's worst road safety records, seeing about 40 deaths each day. Zanani Mandela, great-granddaughter of Nelson Mandela, died in a crash 3 years ago on the eve of the World Cup. The long, short walk for safe roads is in her honor, like this one in Vietnam and many more all over the world. Zanani's uncle, Kwaku Mandela, joined the walk in Washington.
If we could create something ultimately that would help save lives in the future, that would help educate people, we should bring light to it. And so we did this in Zanani's name and her honor.
Walker Kristen Thoman is learning how to drive, but is still haunted by a crash several years ago. She wants people to know the consequences of unsafe driving.
People do get hurt and traumatized. Like now, I'm scared to back out of my driveway. And when I learn how to drive, I have to learn how to back out of my driveway. And it's really traumatizing for me because every time I still see this accident happening.
Outgoing U.S. Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood says distracted driving is the new killer.
86% of us buckle up, but the whole notion of texting and driving, cell phone use and driving, people don't get it yet.
The number of traffic deaths in the United States inched up last year after dropping steadily for the past 6 years.
But the numbers are rising globally, expected to reach 2 million killed every year in the next decade. That's why the push is so strong to reach this age group.
And even younger. 4-year-old Kai Zar knows all about safety.
Hold hands while you're crossing the street with a dog.
The younger you get to them and teach them about the culture of safety, the more likely they are to practice those kinds of safe habits for the rest of their life.
And pass those safe habits on to their children.
Well, for more discussion on efforts to improve road safety, Carolyn Presutti joins us now in the studio. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you,
Carolyn.
Thanks.
Well, great piece, and thank you for sharing that with us. Now, tell us a little bit more about the long, short walk for road safety. This was actually in honor of Zanani, Nelson Mandela's granddaughter.
Exactly. It's in her memory, and it actually carries on throughout the month of May. So you'll see these walks. It's a very organic event. And even on their website, you'll see more and more walks added to their website every day. It continues throughout the month of May.
And it's a global movement.
Exactly.
Now, going back to the package you just showed us, or the story you just showed us, in the U.S., it seems that the road deaths are on the decline slightly, but globally they're going up.
Correct.
Just sum it up for us. What is going on?
Well, in the United States, we have a lot of laws, and we do have a lot of awareness campaigns, much like the long, short walk. But the laws are varied, and there's even a controversy over those in the United States, whether or not you ban cell phones entirely, and that's exactly what the National Transportation Safety Board wants to do. Meantime, it's up to the individual states. Some states have distracted driving as a secondary violation. So a police officer cannot pull over a driver if they are talking on their cell phone. Exactly. They have to be pulling them over for one reason, and then they can give them a ticket. Exactly. If they don't have a ticket, if they don't have a seatbelt on, then they could get a ticket for that. And as a secondary offense, maybe texting or using their cell phone.
Now, you had a conversation with Kwaku Mandela. It must have been really interesting, knowing how close he is to Mr. Mandela, who everybody's so concerned about because of his health. Share us a little bit about what you found out about him, and what did he share with you about Mr. Mandela?
He was very open about his grandfather. I mean, he's very down to earth, too. But he went back to his years in the United States. You know, he grew up here as a child, and he only went back to South Africa in 1993. So he talked about that first time back in South Africa. He was 4 years old. He met his grandfather, and he was not used to seeing poverty. He was not used to seeing apartheid. So it was very eye-opening for him, but especially the first time that the government allowed Nelson Mandela's family to visit him was when Kwaku went in, and Nelson Mandela was meeting all his grandchildren for the very first time. So
That must have been something.
yeah, take a look.
I remember the police stopping us and asking us to exit the car and checking our passports. And I obviously remember going to meet my granddad for the first time. Well, he was under house arrest at that time at Victor Verster prison. And it was interesting because I remember we walked into this house and they had cartoons on the TV, and he immediately walked in and said, "Is this my grandson?" and offered us hot chocolate. And I think a lot of us in that room that day kept thinking, if this was prison, then this is somewhere we wanted to be. Little did I know ultimately what he represented and what his struggle had been about.
Great insight. Thanks for showing us that to us. Before you go, briefly, I want to know about, even though there are laws on the books to stop people from driving recklessly, yet people don't abide by these laws. Why?
Right, that's a good issue to bring up, I think. It's fascinating what former U.S. Transportation Secretary Norman Mineta said. He said that the ability to be mobile is a freedom, and people don't like restrictions on their freedoms. He said what we need to do is an education campaign to show people that this isn't a restriction on your mobility. It's actually a safety measure, and you do that by getting to the young children, so that the young children tell their parents, hey, we need to buckle up. Hey, put down your cell phone, don't text. And that's so it becomes second nature to the children, and they educate us, the parents.
Well, I hope it catches fast, because the road accident situation is kind of disturbing. But thank you so much.
Sure, my
Carolyn
pleasure.
Presutti joining us here today on Studio.